Round two. Okay.
We're
Tell us,
back.
it's Friday and we're talking about ancient mysteries today.
Ancient mysteries.
And this is the first time we talk about this one.
Correct. And it's called Angkor Wat. And it's in the country of Cambodia. And it's so important to that country that one of the lotus buds that represents one of the towers, you can see it in the Cambodian flag. And it's an absolute mystery, to me anyway, to a lot of people. And it's either equivalent or comparable to the Great Pyramids of Giza. And when you say that, people say, "What are you talking about?" So, but it's
Why is
just
it such a mystery? Why is it so
compelling.
looked at? And, I had never heard of it until you brought it up.
Right. It's 400 acres of, stones that have been brought together. It's got 10 million stones. It's 400 acres big. And, it's been put together with tremendous effort and meticulous details. It's even been called the hydraulic city. And definitely the people that built it had tremendous knowledge, specialized knowledge of engineering, agriculture, hydraulics, architecture. There were many, many sciences that had to go into the building of Angkor Wat. It's just an incredible sight to see. It's on my bucket list. I want to go to Cambodia to see this place. And not only that, even amongst the pillars and the walls and everything else that it has, every single inch of it is engraved. So you got carvings throughout this particular galleries and columns, and everything's been carved out, either with everything. It's a Hindu type of religious monument.
Temple.
And you've got, the god Shiva, and you've got several other goddesses. It's an incredible sight to see. Tremendous. So, it's definitely a mystery. And the more we study it, the more questions that come up. In there was a LiDAR study, okay, in 2012 by two people named Evans and Fletcher. And that LiDAR study, it was tremendous. But let's start from the beginning. It's got 400 acres. It's got 10 million stones. It's 3 times the size of Vatican City. And it's got temples, terraces, galleries. It's tremendous. And the main Lotus Bud Tower rises 200 feet in the air. And so just the building alone, it's, who built it and the intricacies that have gone into it. And so, there's a gentleman by the name of Mu that he's the one that brought it to the world. He got lost in the jungle, and when he realized he was lost, he got his machete out and started, creating his own path, and then he came up to the city. The locals always knew it was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the locals knew they were there, but the world didn't know this. And this was, I think, in the 1800s, 1860, okay? Prior to that, there was a Portuguese guy, in 1589, a guy by the name of Madalena, mentions Angkor Wat. But it's really in 1860 with this guy named Henry Muret, and he's the one that brought it to the world. Shortly after that, he described it in great detail, and there was a frenzy in Europe, and people started coming to it because it's just a tremendous sight. And
it's said to have been built
900 years ago.
Around 900 years.
Around 900 years ago. It's difficult to believe.
And
It's said that it was built by the Khmer Empire, which You have to give the Khmer Empire a lot of credit because I've read about them also, and they were very advanced, and they were very keen on business, on running different agricultural sites. They have what's called flooding the rice agriculture. So water is extremely important, and but I think that as they move forward, there's a guy who is definitely an expert in this. I'm no expert in it. We're just doing it for fun, and to stimulate the minds of people. And I'll do the best I can. But there's a guy called Praveen Mohan. Praveen Mohan. I follow this guy, and this guy is absolutely exceptional. And a lot of the stuff that, I'm going to share with you, he's the one that brought it to my attention. Then I've looked at it further, and it's just an incredible sight. They call it the hydraulic city, okay, because the builders, okay, diverted water, listen to this, okay, from 3 different rivers to change the underground water table and the underground mixture of whatever was there to prevent it from sinking. Okay? So they already had all this engineering ideas in mind. Mm-hmm. The city is standing the way it is because it's in an area where it's very hot and humid and is characterized by flooding and droughts. And the city's still standing because it has a moat around it, which is 1 mile long by 3/4 of a mile. It's huge.
Which is rectangular.
Correct.
Not circle like a castle.
Right. And the water that's there, which has been diverted there from different rivers, it's applying pressure to the 10 million rocks that stones, some of them weighing up to a ton, brought from 25 miles away, okay? All that pressure that's being exerted is being combated by the pressure that the water from the moat is producing.
Wow.
It is a tremendous balance. It's an engineering art that, they were aware of.
Right.
And it stops the city from sinking. As you read along into these things, and again, I'm no expert, you start learning that everything that gets built has a sinking ratio. For example, it took me to the Millennium Towers in San Francisco, it's a 58-story building of luxury apartments and whatever else is there, and that building has sunk 16 inches since it was built. Okay? I believe it was built somewhere around 10 years ago or 13 years ago, but it has already sunk 16 inches. Okay? And reading about these mysteries throws you into this kind of thing, which is what I love, because you're learning constantly. And this is definitely not my area of expertise, but it's something that thrives me.
Yeah,
I just love it.
The mystery behind it, because it's such a huge structure. And I was asking you, there's nothing else built in that time period to this scale, right?
Not only in that time period, in the entire country of Cambodia, there's nothing like it.
Right.
And in Vietnam and the surrounding countries, there's absolutely nothing like it.
In any time period.
In any time period. Okay?
Yeah.
And the more we are studying it, the more we're learning things that is debunking the original archaeological, and I have nothing against archaeologists, but the original thoughts. What was said 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's not applying.
Right.
Because in 2012, there was a LiDAR study by 2 guys.
I think on your other page.
Yeah, it was 2 guys named Evans, and I forget the other guy's name, Fletcher. In 2012, Evans and Fletcher, they did a LiDAR study, which is called light detection and re-imaging or something like that.
Light detection?
Yeah. What it is a bunch of lasers that are like hundreds of thousands of lasers are fired continuously and at the same time, and it produces a schematic picture of what's in the underground, and then it brings all that data back, and the computer is able to discern it and place it in a like a topographical map that we can read.
Wow.
And I mean, that study, because you have to realize also that this is a city that was covered by jungle.
Right.
Okay?
It was lost.
It was lost. No, the locals knew there was something there, and the locals would go, but the rest of the world didn't know anything about it till the 1800s, 1860 or whatever it is that I said. So you got to go in there, with your machete in the old days and whatever. Now you would have, sophisticated equipment to be able to, and they've cut back the jungle so that we can see the beauty of this place. And I'm telling you, every inch of it is carved. And so they're saying that the Khmer Empire built it. It's up to interpretation, because did they know, or the level of sophistication, because the moat is actually impeding the city from collapsing.
Wow.
Okay? So they call it a hydraulic city. This guy, Bernard Gressier, in 1956 did what's called an aerial archaeological study of the site. Okay? And he followed the waterways, the canals, the dikes, everything that is so intricately built to the city. And he said the magnitude of complexity to build this was like out of this world. I mean, it's incredible, And so you can go back and look at that study. I did a little bit. It is fascinating. You've got rivers and creeks that have been diverted and they've been drenched, and you've got canals that have been formed. They're 10 miles long, and in some areas from 130 to 200 feet wide. I mean, that's no small task. And that's just to prepare the ground to build this thing. And then you've got to build it. And then every inch of it is carved with it's a religious Hinduism temple. Okay? And it's just tremendous. And it's got...
And you have mentioned that one of the lotus flowers was it 200 feet?
It's 200 feet tall. It's amazing.
That's massive.
Oh, no, it's massive.
How did they do that?
You got me. I know that we got buddies that are telling me, hey, you're talking about ancient technologies and all this stuff. Where's the proof? I got none. But you tell me, how was this thing built?
Right. Because I did read that they were arguing that, it was built by 300,000 men. And I think you said that it took them, they're claiming it took 37 years.
Well, they said it was built 900 years ago.
Right.
And they say that it took 37 years to build. But one mathematician came by and say, well, look, if that is indeed the case, and we got 10 million stones, and he did the math, and he says, you would have had to have placed one of these stones that weighs about a ton, okay, every minute for 37 years, without having a break in between for lunch or sleep or anything. You had to have a massive workforce. So you would have to have done it one stone for 37 years to build it. And that's highly improbable. The way So he says, I don't think so. Now, it is a testament to Hindu mythology. It's a religious Hindu temple.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a tremendous amount of symbolism. Okay? For example, the Lotus Bud tower, the tallest one, is supposed to reflect the mountain of Meru. Okay? And this is in Hindu mythology. The moat, okay, surrounding it is supposed to symbolize the cosmic sea from which all life begins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Um, it's just extremely interesting. Um, how do they do all these things to be able to put it together like this? And the symbolism is tremendous too. Um, there is one carving that is 160 feet long, okay, and they are life size, meaning the carvings are of the carvings are of
6 foot people and things like that, right?
correct. So the carving, this particular carving, which is the most famous of the entire city, okay, it's got 88 gods pulling on what looks like a rope. Now, 160 feet long, life-size gods pulling on this rope, 88 of them, and then 91 demons on the other side pulling against the gods. And in the center, you've got the god Vishnu. Okay? This is actually a calendar. And the sun hits it. As it goes through it, it shows the days of the year. The 88 gods are supposed to be pulling from the equinox to the end of summer, and the 91 gods are pulling from the equinox to winter. So it's actually a calendar. It is specifically placed in this particular location on this city so that the sun hits it and it just follows it. It's how do you do it?
Wow.
How do you do it? And you're talking about life-size gods and life-size demons, the size of you and me. Not only building it, but carving it. You follow what I'm saying?
Do you know what that is called? That is that the.
It's it makes it's called it references the Mahabharata Gita,
Mm-hmm.
which is a Hindu story, and is the churning of the ocean of milk. I think it's when the god Vishnu creates, life.
Okay.
Okay, and it's just absolutely tremendous, Mike. Now this gentleman Praveen Mohan, he's an expert in this kind of stuff, and he actually went out there.
Oh wow.
Okay, and he's very meticulous, and he's been studying this. Praveen identified another very, very interesting carving. Okay, it's carving for the sun god Surya. Now listen to this. So this particular carving is the personification of the sun, okay, in Hinduism, okay? Below the god Surya, there are 9 figures, okay? And we're going to post the photo so that people can see it. The 9 figures below Surya represent the 9 planets of our solar system. Now, this thing was built 1,000 years ago. Pluto was not discovered till 1930. Okay? Neptune, which is the 8th planet, was discovered in 1840. And Uranus was discovered in 1781. Praveen has also identified another carving that shows a Hindu god with a telescope looking up into the heavens, carved into this place too. You can interpret it any way you want, but if you see the carving, he's definitely got a telescope. His nose is even pushed to the side, and the other eye is closed. It's a telescope. Okay. How did they know if these things had not been invented so that we could see these planets. Okay? Super interesting stuff. Let me throw one more thing at you. Okay? In these carvings, okay, there is an elephant that has been carved with 4 tusks. Okay? We have actually found fossils with elephants for 4 tusks. They don't exist. They haven't existed for a long time. But there's a carving in there that has an elephant with 4 tusks. Now, they existed 2 million years ago. So, you guys figure it out on your own, do your own research. I'm just giving you food for thought. So this is, something that has been carved into this thing that supposedly was built 900 to 1,000 years ago. And you got an elephant with 4 tusks in it. Look it up. It's incredible. And then there's another temple that's smaller. It's called Angkor Wat. Okay?
Is this in a different location?
No, it's the same area.
Oh, okay.
Okay? In one of the carvings, there is plainly visible what's called a Stegosaurus, which is a dinosaur. You can make it out because it has the laps of the thing on its back, on the spinal column, and they're very distinctive. They come out. You can tell that this is definitely a Stegosaurus, which is a dinosaur. Okay? So, I mean, it's incredible. And then there's references. For example, there was this gentleman. He was a Chinese diplomat. His name was Su Dogwan.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a very intricate and very detailed dissertation about his visit to Angkor Wat in 1296. He was there for a year, and he was talking about the main lotus bud tower being covered in gold.
Oh, wow.
Okay? He describes it being covered in gold. And so it's just tremendous,
Yeah, I just looked up the Stegosaurus. It looks like a Stegosaurus.
Yeah. It's
Now, one could say, okay, well, that was just sculpted into there to pay tribute somehow.
I guess you could, And you could say the same thing about the elephant.
Because also, how have these carvings not fully deteriorated? I know they've deteriorated. They were saying through... they came in the 1980s and tried to clean up and preserve, and they ended up destroying a lot of stuff because of what they used, and then the chemicals or whatever. And then also you have bat pee and poo that is acidic, and it just eats up the I think it's limestone.
Okay.
Or sandstone. I'm sorry, sandstone.
Okay.
But so yeah, naturally things will deteriorate. So you would think, oh well, if it's, how old is this thing?
How old is it?
Because how are these sculptures so intact? And did the jungle preserve them?
Well, definitely, it's a two-sided thing, because the jungle will eat it up. Eventually, it will cover it to such extent that it will be completely invisible to us unless we use LiDAR.
And eat it up, but to
some extent it will prevent from people going over there and ransacking it. That's what I'm talking about. Because we as human beings have a tendency to go somewhere and we want a little piece of it, a little rock of this, a little rock. You got 20 million people going, you got 20 million little rocks coming out.
I think they did ransack it, no?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
But it's built of sandstone.
But I'll tell you one last thing that's very interesting. Okay. The main chamber in the central tower, okay, they started digging down on it, and they found out that there was a large well that went down. And they found that there was a statue of a Buddha covering the well, but it was kind of like to hide it. And in 1934, this man named Comey figured it out, and so they started digging below it. I guess they moved the Buddha statue to the side. They went down 50 feet, and they hit water. So they started pumping the water out, and when they got down to 70 feet, they found a stone box. Okay? This is, like for the movies. There was 65 grams of gold leaf in it. And there was a very strange shape, circular formation depicting something on the box. These folks, okay, stopped. They stopped digging. They documented very little, and they took off back to Europe, and nobody knew what happened to anything. And now that box is missing. That big block box, nobody knows where it is. It has disappeared to history. And so, there's just a lot of unanswered questions, 70 feet down below, and that box now is not there. It's gone. Where is it? Who took it? And why? Why not share it with the rest of the world? So there's a lot of, this is just an incredible site.
Wow.
It's definitely a reflection. It's elevating Hindu mythology, with a tremendous amount of respect. It's tremendous. What do you call it when you do something to respect for Hinduism?
Uh-huh.
It was their life. They believed in it, and they carved this thing out, and it's called Angkor Wat, and it's just amazing. And the more I read about it, the more questions you get.
Yeah.
But I think that because it's so prevalent now and everybody knows it's there, and if the studies continue, they're going to find out that the Khmer Empire didn't build it. That's what I think anyway. And it's very interesting. I mean, super interesting stuff.
Yeah.
You got to figure out the timeline, between that elephant with 4 tusks, that dinosaur, the Stegosaurus. How did they get it? I mean, how? Yeah, I can't answer it. We need experts to come in.
Yeah. And also the planets. That's amazing.
The planets,
They had the ability. I mean, and there's other cultures and people that have something along those lines, right? Like the Sumerians. Didn't they also have carvings showing the planets?
Correct.
So, you wonder, these are old civilizations. This is way before our modern telescope. But
Right.
the pyramids, the fact that they're aligned to certain constellations, right?
Correct.
So, we just don't know the answer.
We don't know the answer.
We don't know the answer yet.
But, somebody knows.
Yeah,
Because whoever took that box, must have a lot of power, a lot of influence to get into, a building of this magnitude that at that point I think it would be gathering, a lot of people's interest. And so all of a sudden that thing.
I think that there's a community of people, like you that are really passionate about this, but I don't know that many people know about it. I think most people, oh, that's cool, what is that? And then you move on. But you've obviously studied it for years, and it really interests you.
Every time something comes up on it, I like to read it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many questions that,
Yeah.
it's just super interesting. And the idea is to share a little bit of it. You guys can realize that I'm no expert whatsoever.
No, but you know a lot.
But you stimulate the minds of young kids, and they may become, the future archaeologists that go out there and make tremendous discoveries.
Yep.
Something that ties our present to our past, and share with the world. It's cool.
Super cool. Well, that was a really cool ancient mystery and civilization.
Yeah,
Thank you
let's
for
see it.
sharing.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to throw in?
No, we're good.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.
All
Thank
right.
you.